Welcome back to the FloTrack podcast, FloTrackPodcast@gmail.com. I am Kevin, joined from his brand new podcasting studio in a small town outside Austin, Texas. It is Lincoln Shrike. Good morning, Lincoln.
Hey, good morning. I know there's been calls for me to get a desk, and it's been a long time coming. And instead of just a desk, I've assembled an entire structure here. Just kidding. It's my wife's art studio, and we finally got the Wi-Fi at least somewhat figured out. Got a space heater rolling. It's kind of cold, but I feel much better positioned. I've gone from the worst podcast setup in the trio, amongst the trio of us, to arguably the best. So I'm feeling pretty happy today.
No, not arguably. You went from bronze to gold overnight, and I commend you on that. I think the only thing missing is, maybe if you could put some running theme stuff behind you. I know you want to plug the wife's art 24/7, but a temporary picture here and there, maybe some soundproofing on the, you could really go all out with some stuff on the walls there.
I could, yeah. Those foam textured soundproofing things. I could install those, although I don't know if there's room for those amongst the paintings. But if ever her career falls apart and my podcasting career fully takes off as I anticipate, that's exactly what we'll have to do. And I'm just going to have this full studio. I may even have to start recording music out here, even though I don't know how to play an instrument, just because the setup is so good.
Yeah. I think you can throw some stuff on the roof, maybe. On the ceiling. You put some stuff up there. She's not going to put art there.
That's
maybe, but I don't know what's in front of you right now, but you make it look like the whisper rooms back in the office. It would be pretty good. I like it, man. You have a very good look there. Again, from worst to first. What a comeback story for Lincoln Shrike.
It really, yeah. I don't know what parallels to put it on there, but yeah, it's gone from just an unfortunate situation. I might be the Oklahoma City Thunder right now, like in the future, actually, I should say. So I had all these draft picks and I finally capitalized on them. And now look where I'm at now. It's just, it's an incredible story.
One correction before we get to the show. I seem to have implied yesterday, and I didn't mean to do this, that CJ Albertson didn't yet have the indoor marathon world record when I was bringing up the Holy Trinity, the triumvirate of records, i.e. the 50K, the indoor world record in the marathon, and the treadmill marathon world record. I was saying that to imply that he already had it, and if we would see somebody else ever do that in history.
I see.
Apparently I was unclear in my statement, and the person who was able to correct that for us via our inbox, FloTrackPodcast@gmail.com, was CJ Albertson himself, who wrote us a nice note.
That is incredible. And I should say a lot of that lack of clarity would have been on me because I had no idea that he held the indoor marathon world record, which according to this Runner's World article from 2019, 2:17:59, which is pretty nifty, over 211 laps. He also clarified that it's 211 laps because I was trying to do math in my head. I knew it was like 211. I just had forgotten. It's not. I liked how I portrayed that as some impossible number to figure out, when in reality it's kind of just simple math. 26 times 8 plus a couple. But anyways, it makes sense that he's the indoor marathon world record holder. And I'm sorry I didn't know that, and sorry that I was adding more confusion to what you were saying. But yes, I fully think he could break that record this indoor season when and if he gives it another shot. And he mentioned that he's, I think he jokingly said at the end of this message, he said, I'll get to working on the around the sofa record, LOL. Which I don't want to conflate the LOL with the thought that maybe he's not going to actually do it, because I think he could. I think he could be quite good at it.
Yeah, maybe that's just misdirection for his opponents, so he can scare people off from attempting it. This is just an all CJ Albertson podcast at this point. This is episode 200. This is our first episode in December, and we've made the full pivot. Just anything CJ Albertson does, we're covering for the entire month of, the foreseeable future, December, January, February.
Yeah. Right. And I know we were concerned that is he going to be rested enough for the marathon project? I mean, I'm now hoping he does something cool in the interim between December 1st now and December 20th. Can
Right.
we get I mean, we're going to talk about a 24-hour record. Maybe he's not ready for that, but he could do like the
Mhm.
afternoon record or something like that, or the mid-morning to early afternoon record. I don't know what else is out there, but you're right. He's got the distance running EGOT right now, which
Mhm.
you called what'd you call it? The kit, the 50K indoor and
Yeah.
treadmill. I like the kit
Yeah.
acronym. It's good.
Yeah. Yeah, the K though, I don't know if it works because it's 50K,
Yeah.
but because K could be anything. K could, someone could come along and get the 100K, do it that way. But I, as an acronym, KIT is the strongest of what I can think of. What
Yeah.
what are you thinking in terms of like his sofa time? I mean, I speculated yesterday he could probably do it as fast as his indoor record now because now he's pretty serious.
It depends on how big of a sofa, and how big of a
Hmm.
house or apartment he's got. Um, that you would want the biggest sofa possible. That's going to be a
Hmm.
few thousand laps. Yeah, in all seriousness, you can't get any momentum going. So I don't know. Could you do it in under 4 hours? I mean, that
Hmm.
I know we joked that he could try to do it in like under 2:19 or 2:18, but like you can't actually run, so you're
Hmm.
just kind of turning the whole time. Which the track 50K suggests he's good at turning, but this is a whole different level of turning.
Hmm.
I would say under 4 hours would be good, but man, that would be
Hmm.
awfully tough.
I looked it up just now as you were talking. The current world record holder is actually my son when he was 4, who ran around our sofa screaming for 6 hours and never ran out of energy. It's amazing.
It is. It favors the young. It's so as a
Hmm.
27-year-old, he may be past his prime when it comes to the around the sofa uh, game.
Hmm.
There's also the back and forth in the room game. I know the marathon. I know 5-year-olds are often 4 and 5-year-olds are pretty good at that
Yeah.
too. Wailing on the ground. That's a close cousin
Hmm.
of the indoor sofa record. But no, I doubt he actually tries this in all seriousness. But I would be there to indulge it if he did.
You mentioned before the 24-hour record. I want to talk about this a bit because a big name in ultramarathon running took a crack at it. Kilian Jornet tried to break the record that was set back in 1997 by Giannis Kurnos, 188.68 miles covered in 24 hours. And Jornet was doing it
Mm-hmm.
on a track, which makes sense because of lighting and fueling needs, perhaps bathroom opportunities as well. You want to make sure you're not too far away. And he made it 11 hours, and he covered 83 miles in those 11 hours before having to drop out and get medical attention. This record by Kuros, we did the math ahead of time, pretty dang impressive. It's almost 8 miles an hour for 24 hours.
Yeah, and Let's Run did a post about this, and the 24-hour record is 7:37 .9 per mile pace for a full day. So
Mm-hmm.
if you're out there on your 3-mile run and that 7:37 pace starts to catch up with you, you're probably not going to be able to get the 24-hour record. Now, I think a lot of elite runners say 7:37 pace. I haven't run 7:37 pace since I was in middle school. That's
Mm-hmm.
so slow. This is an incredible achievement from 1997. I think part of the reason the record stood so long is no one else is insane enough to give it a shot. Now Jornet he was just a close 105 miles away from
Mm-hmm.
snatching this record. Yeah, only made it 11 hours before complaining of chest pains. I don't know if I'm not familiar with the ultramarathon scene. Maybe our guy CJ eventually jumps up there. I don't know. Are there a bunch of people jockeying for this record? Is Jim Walmsley thinking about going for this at some point? I don't know the hierarchy, like, and who does what. So I need to educate myself a little bit more. Because when I think of ultramarathon, I think of Walmsley, but maybe he doesn't do 188 mile runs. I don't know. But I feel like the barrier to this record is just the fact that no one wants to run for a day straight. And I applaud Jornet for trying, but
yeah,
I just, who wants to try? Who wants this enough? And I also enjoyed the fact that there was controversy in the sense that, of course, the old school of Giannis Kouros is throwing dirt on the fire of this whole situation, as he's of course criticizing shoe technology ahead of Jornet's attempt. Calls it anti-athletic.
Oh,
wow! I enjoy that this boomer is just joining in the masses to try to dispute anything that happens in 2020. And in the end, he didn't even need to do that. He could have just remained silent and I think looked better, because I mean, nothing made the record look better than an elite ultramarathoner not even making it within 100 miles of his record. I mean, not even making it within 13 hours of his record. So this is quite the story. I mean, this may need to be we gotta have these guys on the podcast or something to go to war with each other. Hopefully we don't have to have Kilian Jornet from his hospital bed. We can get him fully recovered and out there. And
no, we just do Kouros versus a shoe. He doesn't even need a debate with Jornet. He just argues with an alpha fly. Yeah.
Yeah. I just didn't know
coming up on Crossfire
in the ultra scene. I didn't know there was so much beef with the ultra scene.
Oh, of course there is. And I think where we're going to see these records go down, it's the same thing, I think, to a certain extent as track and field. The person who's able to bring the speed, which is a crazy thing to say in a 24-hour race, to a longer distance. That's when the records start to go down. So someone like Walmsley, who was a legitimate track runner, it makes sense that he goes up to ultra distance and does really, really well. And then maybe he's going to, I don't even know what you would classify this. I know it's in the bucket of ultra running, but it's certainly 188 miles in 24 hours is a lot different than just running a 100-mile race, which is different than running a marathon, which is obviously different than running a 10K, et cetera, et cetera. But you could have, I think, someone break this record once you have more people moving up, having the financial incentive to move up from the shorter distances, and pretty much everything is shorter than this. I think you touched on an interesting point there about the attempt and how much you miss it by, because we've covered a lot of world record attempts in this business of ours. Hey, someone's going for the mile world record and they miss by a couple of seconds, or someone's going for a marathon world record and they miss by a couple of minutes. This one, they asked Kilian Jornet, hey, how'd it go, man? I didn't see your race. Oh, I didn't get it. How much did you miss by? I was up by 13 hours. Oh, well, how many miles? It's 105. I shanked it left, went off by about 105 miles. That was it. I was feeling good though for the first 10 hours, but the next the next 14 just weren't feasible for me. No, this is insane. This is crazy. This is crazy stuff here.
Yeah. Obviously I have to assume he was fitter than just to make it 11 hours. I'm sure he had done some training runs, a half day. Hold on, I got to go get out for my half day my training run, and then I got to do my long run next week, my 20-hour long run. I feel bad for him. Obviously, if he had medical conditions, we don't want to make fun of that. But I think, there has likely been no world record attempt further away from the actual mark in the history of mankind, be it absurd records, I don't know, twirling plates, where people would get all those sticks out and twirl plates. It'd be the equivalent of like getting the Guinness Book of World Record guy out there. You're like, all right, I'm going to twirl 37 plates today. And then you drop the first plate immediately. And I mean, that's basically the equivalent here. I do feel bad for him, but maybe he'll have another crack. I do also want to say I find it hilarious. And I know 7:37 pace gets quite fast when you're talking about running all day. But the idea of mechanical doping with shoe technology at running at jogging pace cracks me up. Now, I'm not a scientist, and I'm sure there's science to say that the shoes do help, but the idea of a guy complaining that carbon fiber plates and foam or whatever is helping someone run 7:30 pace is absolutely hilarious to me.
Well, it's all impact, right? It's all impact. It's
understand.
lessening the impact.
You're saving your knees. Whatever. I just,
once you get to halfway, Lincoln, it's the, you get around the 60, 70, 80 mile mark and you hit that halfway point and you're still feeling good. That's a huge psychological advantage. That's what I've always said.
It is comical to me that this technology controversy transcends the track, the roads, the ultra track, and everything in between. It's just, you could be running, people are going to be critical of your track spikes when you're running 43-second 400 pace, and then they're going to be critical when you're running 7:30 pace for a full day. And we should say Jornet was not even close to the record pace in his first 11 hours. He covered the first. Wait, what was I say? No, because so in the
83
same period,
miles.
Yeah,
83 miles in 11 hours.
Yeah, the same period that Jornet covered the 11 hours where he covered the 134.8K. Koros had him beat at 149K. So there was incentive to stop, even if, he was obviously hurting with chest pains. He was well off. So, it may have been a situation where going the other 13 hours may not have been in his best interest because he was not going to get it anyways.
You said 7:37 pace?
That's according to this Let's Run article. I haven't done I have not done the math.
Well, let's just say that's the pace. How long could Eliud Kipchoge run at 7:37 pace?
Right. I understand there's a difference between being able to run, even 40 miles at one pace and then being able to do it for a full day. I get that. And he wouldn't have I imagine any interest at that. But that pace is walking for him essentially. Mm-hmm. And so you would like to think someone as mentally strong and as elite at running 4:37 pace for a full marathon could go 3 minutes slower per mile and do it until the end of time. I don't know. I would like to think at this point right now in my life, I would get tired, but I could walk all day. If I had the appropriate goose, maybe a sandwich on the side, some Gatorade and possibly even a beer just to keep myself interested, I think I could walk all day. Now I would be exhausted and my legs would hurt for 3 weeks, but that's kind of what I put it with Eliud Kipchoge, this once in a generation, once in a maybe a lifetime or athlete. It wouldn't be fun for him, but I think he could run 7:37 pace for a day. I have full faith that he could do that.
Well, he could take a little break here and there, and then he could drop in some 6:37s to keep himself interested to make up time. I'm going to say some activities. This is lightning round here. I'm going to say some activities, and you're going to tell me if Eliud Kipchoge could do them while running 7:37 pace. Are you ready?
Yeah.
Okay. Tweeting.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, definitely. Okay. Tweeting.
Eating a meal that does not involve a fork or a spoon.
Of course. Yeah. And I think fork and a spoon can be included if we must here, because I was going to say cooking a meal too, if we got like a mobile like skillet or something.
Mm-hmm. Could he send, this is a little bit more difficult than tweeting. Like, could he film a TikTok of some sort?
Oh, yeah. I think he could edit it too. He could probably get caught up on the trends of TikTok and figure out which songs are popular and like make something creative out of it for sure. I think he could start a brand new account and, easily, he could probably get up to 1,000 followers within minutes, just say, hey, I'm doing this 1 day record. They tell me I'm running 7:37 pace, but I've been walking for 12 hours, so I'm not sure what's going on.
I've never actually felt 7:37 pace. Is this what this is? My legs are making some weird motion. It's not quite walking, but I certainly would not describe it as running. What is this?
Yeah.
What's going on in my lower body?
Yeah, I like to think of like, I don't know, could you go 3 minutes slower than, how long could you go 3 minutes per mile slower than your marathon pace? I don't know what my marathon pace is these days. It's not very good, but I'd be talking about running 11-minute per mile pace. I mean, that's just an absolute trot. So for him, it would be even more so because he's way, way, way fitter, obviously, than me. So, I mean, he would, yes, he could. I would think he could do this right away.
Mm-hmm. Last one. Could he knit a sweater?
That's tough. I don't want to take too much away from the ultra. I'm going to go with no on that one.
I lost you there. Give me the
sorry.
synopsis again there. Sorry.
Yes. Sorry. I actually said no. I want to give credit to the ultra athletes and say that I don't think Eliud Kipchoge could knit a sweater during this. I just because I don't know if he's a seamstress, if you will.
I thought you were going to say you're going to give credit to the people who knit, and you didn't want to give them too much credit there.
I could do that too. I could do that, but we're a running podcast, not a knitting podcast. So I have to worry more about the running fans, the ultra fans coming after me than the knitting community. So I will say that I don't think he could do that. And plus, what is he going to have? Is he going to have a backpack and have a ball of yarn just coming out, pulling out of his backpack? I mean, maybe.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, okay.
Well, there's also the possibility, if you're talking about what can you do with the 7:37 mile, he also could just stop for 2 minutes and then knit really quickly and then speed up and make up the time.
Right. Yeah, I guess you don't have to run continually. He could take say a 30-minute break. Now, of course, everyone knows that when you stop, you're tempted to stay stopped. Objects in motion tend to stay in motion until acted upon by an equal and whatever that is. And I think he would, even he would be succumbed to wanting to sit down if he had been going for 15 hours. But the mini breaks would be helpful just in the sense of if he needs to take care of any duties, if he's minutes ahead, if he can't even move his body that slowly and he needs to run 6:30 pace and they say, Eliud, you can take some breaks, you're well ahead. He said, okay, fine. Because you got to use the bathroom, right? I mean, even these best guys, you can't. I mean, how many times you got to go to the bathroom during a 24-hour period? I mean, I'm at 10 to 15, so I imagine if you're taking as much fluid as these guys are, I don't think you're just going, are you?
Yeah. Well, you drink a lot of coffee. No, you're stopping. They're stopping to eat. I don't think they're eating on the run. They're definitely doing the gels and stuff on the run, but they're stopping to actually eat food. That's why 7:37 is so impressive, because they're not running for 24 hours. They're out there for 24 hours, but so they're actually running faster than 7:37 pretty much the entire time, which is crazy.
True. That's a good point.
So Kipchoge, basically, I think his strategy, you run like a 2:05 marathon, bank 26 miles pretty quickly. But you'd have to take, okay, so how many marathons are in 188 miles?
They said it's 7.2.
Okay. So if he ran 7 3-hour marathons, that would get him there. Which would leave.
Sounds so brutal.
I guess you could do, but he could do some 240s, and then that would leave him some rest in there. Like he could go 7 by marathon in 240 with whatever amount of rest that would equal.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. Yeah, I think 7 by a marathon. You want to hear the hardest workout of all time? 7 by a marathon.
That's in the third Once a Runner book. You have to get the third one.
That's after his 800 by 20 by 400 workout. I
We
say
can
he
move
gets.
on.
Yeah, I'd say he gets this done. Yeah.
Well, it's just so weird because people try to figure out what they could do, and it's not even like it's a different event; it's a different sport
It is.
entirely
Yeah.
than running a marathon. Certainly, running anything on the track, it's just an entirely different level of endeavor. Okay, you had your eyes on this Flagstaff story here about runners going to Flagstaff to train during the pandemic. Do you want to report on the reporting that you've read here? Tell us what's going on.
I do. We had heard rumors throughout the years pre-pandemic of athletes going to Flagstaff and its very thin air and fitness friendly location and community that some college athletes not from Flagstaff were just going there and taking online classes
Mm-hmm.
just to take advantage of altitude training throughout the entire year leading up to big competitions. Well,
Oh, we lost you again, Lincoln. The internet not as good in
sorry.
Lincoln Shed as we thought. We got to get the double booster.
Sorry.
Can we? You spent
I'm
$8,000 on the
trying.
shed. Can we
Yeah.
spend $80 more on the internet? Can we do that? Can we expense that?
Well, yeah, I'll try that after this. Hey, this is day one. We're getting the rust off.
Yeah.
This is my first 24-hour record attempt. I'm only probably going to make it 11 hours.
Are you gonna
So
podcast for 24 hours straight? Could you do that?
that would be. I need a lot of coffee to do that. And okay, so yeah, as I was saying, we've heard of a lot of athletes
Mm-hmm.
previously, not a lot, but some athletes pre-pandemic taking online classes and training in Flagstaff with, was dubiously legal as far as the NCAA, whatever have you. But the pandemic has provided athletes now with a lot of people taking online classes. Well, now
Right.
everyone can just go full bore if they want to and head to Flagstaff. And this article by AZ Big Media, never heard of it, but they're coming with the big heavy running reports. And I got to say, I love their stock image. If anyone wants to check out this article entitled "College Runners Flock to Flagstaff During Pandemic," we've got somebody just massively heel striking in this photo, which is I enjoy. But the point of the article, we've got Stanford athletes, and they've quoted former NXN champion Liam Anderson. He is in amongst his teammates, has a spot in Flagstaff, and it's just really, it's gone from a NAU and professional running town to a lot of athletes are in this, and they also have, this transcends just Division I. We also have Johns Hopkins athletes in Division III training in there. It says the Johns Hopkins athletes, 14 of the team's 16 freshman runners decided to spend the semester in northern Arizona. I mean, we're talking about big chunks
Wow.
of teams. I'm curious who is paying for all of this. Is it the athletes? Is it their parents? Is it the school? Surely the school is not paying for this.
Right.
But this is quite the story, right? This is really taking advantage of the whole pandemic situation, the whole the online class situation. And I give these athletes credit for, taking their training this seriously and taking advantage of the moment to get up to high altitude. I don't know if this will continue into the new year and how this will go, but I thought this was a neat story.
I think the first quote by Liam Anderson is unintentionally hilarious about the relatively low cost of living. Well, yeah, compared to Stanford, anywhere is low cost. You can go. They relocated to the moon for the semester, and they really liked the cheap
Yeah.
duplex they were able
Yeah.
to score. I
Yeah.
mean, so maybe that's part of it too for a lot of the athletes. Yeah, they were saving money on housing because some of the rent on their off campus spots was getting a bit pricey. Where would you go if you could go anywhere to train? If put yourself back in college Lincoln world.
Flagstaff would be a fair choice, but I would want to go somewhere warmer, and I'm not going to be worried too much about the
Altitude.
altitude. No,
You're more
I
to
mean,
heat
yes,
training.
yeah, I'm just looking for somewhere nice and warm. So you could find me in Southern California if this was something that I would take as seriously, or my parents or college coach would buy into. I know Johns Hopkins is a great program, but the fact that Division III athletes are doing this
Mhm.
is a pretty big deal. And I don't want to make fun and act like they're not good enough to do this, but I mean, where's the
Johns
cutoff? How
Hopkins
good
wins
do you?
titles. Johns Hopkins
I
wins
understand that
titles. If Gordon was on this
they
podcast,
do.
I'm going to speak up because Gordon is not on this podcast as an alum of Johns Hopkins.
The
He would be
women,
furious right now
the
at
women
you.
win titles. Let's be clear here. The women win a lot of titles. The men, they may have won a title and they're competitive for
Championship program.
sure.
Championship program. Men's,
Women
women's,
are
doesn't
carrying
matter.
a lot of the weight here. I'm just wondering what's the cutoff? What is the cutoff for how good you have to be to spend a semester in Flagstaff where it's not embarrassing? Like, I know I would have
Oh,
not been good enough to spend a semester in Flagstaff. But I feel
are you
like
saying when you
you've got
drive
to.
into town, they check your PRs when you pull into town?
I
The
think
sheriff pulls
so,
you
and
over.
there's a barrier to entry for they not only ask for your ID, how you're going to be paying for this Airbnb over this extended period, but also what division are you running in, and what are
Mhm.
what's your TFERS page? That
Yeah.
you got to submit that as well for this, because I this is all great and well, but I don't want people just doing this so much and taking away the legitimacy of altitude training if they're not in position to really capitalize on it.
Well, that's how you get good is you train at altitude. I'm not an elitist like you. I think people
Mhm.
can go where they
I'm
want.
just
It's
saying, I
interesting
was
though.
stunned. I was stunned that
We're
Division III runners are doing this. This is they that
well,
is that's a big
yeah,
deal.
certainly the fact that it's that expansive is crazy. Boulder though is making a little bit of a comeback. I've noticed.
Mm.
Because Boulder used to be the place back in the '90s, and before that, and a little bit after that as well too. And then a lot of the pro groups moved away. But when I was in high school, Boulder was the place that everybody talked about. It obviously helped that CU was so good, and there were people training in Flagstaff, but it didn't have as much of a spotlight on it. It seemed like people came from around the world to
Mhm.
train in Boulder. I made one trip out there, and I went to Magnolia Road and ran that too, just because I thought it was
Oh
so
wow.
cool. It's very hard, by the way. Spoiler alert, and not very
I
scenic.
thought
I thought it would be. I thought it'd be a little bit. I'm sure there's much prettier places to run in Boulder, but it wasn't the most scenic spot, and it was incredibly difficult. Yeah, I think this is interesting. When they go to Flagstaff during the regular year, I always wonder, man, that's a strange way to live your college years. Now, yeah, they're
it
Division I
really is.
athletes, so they're not on the traditional trajectory of other students on campus. But even if you stay on campus and you're a Division I athlete, your life's going to be a little bit different. But then you do just put it into warp speed when you decide to go to a completely different place, take online classes. Like you're not getting any of the college experience, and maybe they don't. That's not something that's appealing to them. But this is a little different because you're out of school anyway. In a lot of cases, college obviously is not the same. So this actually makes more sense to me than just the regular. I'm going to train in I'm going to go train in Flagstaff while all my regular classmates are back in the lecture halls.
Right. Um, it speaks to me that a lot of athletes and coaches, and we've known that altitude training is helpful for most people when it comes to building aerobic fitness and getting that oxygen up. But are these teams just thinking that NAU and BYU, and then on the women's side maybe New Mexico, do they have this considerable advantage because they get to train all year? I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know. This is interesting to me that so many. I mean, it's not a ton of people, but so many people are willing to kind of uproot their life just to go get the not, I don't want to say tiny advantages, but the little boost of extra, of thin altitude just to move out and to do this. I don't know. I am stunned. If I was going to Stanford, I think even if classes were online, I would still kind of want to be in Palo Alto and doing that. That's just me. But I guess from William Anderson's point of view, yeah, the cost is significantly lower in Flagstaff. I mean, he could, probably take up rent in the brownstones in Manhattan, and those would be less expensive than probably his dorm. So
it's only $4,000 a month, guys. Come on. Let's do it. Yeah.
I enjoyed this article because it clearly went the writer here clearly went to lengths to fully emphasize why athletes would want to do this, and didn't want to just say without sourcing that running at high altitudes is excellent for didn't want to just make that statement on his own. Just he said this, according to active.com, which sounds like a made-up website that runs
you never been to active.com?
No, it sounds like a made-up. Okay, well, whatever.
Oh, that's like a race register. It was a race. I don't know if it still is, but when you signed up for a race, everything went through active.com. At least that's how it used to be back when I ran races. I don't know if that's the case now, but no, it's a real website.
Okay. Well, according to active.com, running at high altitude decreases the amount of oxygen getting to the muscles. Low atmospheric pressure in the thin air makes the blood less oxygen rich as it travels to the muscles. I'm so glad that was included in that piece. I don't know if it would have the article would have made sense otherwise if we wouldn't have pointed out to do that.
Look at the editor here.
Said, running at high altitude is good for training. You could have just accomplished that as much, but it does give it a more official look by quoting active.com.
Here's what I wonder.
He could have also cited moving.com or exercise.org.
So here's what I wonder. Suppose the United States did not have a college sports system. Suppose they were like every other country out there where there was just clubs. And if you wanted to compete in sports, you did it in a club structure, not within a educational system. Where would all these people flock to? Where would all these 18 and 19-year-old wide-eyed dreamers who wanted to be in the Olympics go? Where would all the clubs be based that you'd assume would crop up to be able to support this? Now, the Blue Bloods would still exist. There would still be Bowerman Track Club, and people would go to Portland to train. And there would be still established groups all throughout the country. But I'm guessing a fair share of people who were on the cusp, they're not signed by a group, but they want to just take a shot at it. The people right now who, might get a scholarship, but maybe they're the fifth or sixth best person on the team, not the stud, not the NXN champion coming out. I bet they would flock to Flagstaff in the same way you have all these kids coming out of high school right now, not going to college if they have dreams of being in the tech world, and they go to Silicon Valley and they rent a house with 12 other people and they do tech stuff all day and they make
coding.
apps, whatever. They code, they sit and code, or they meet with VC people, whatever it is people do in that industry. The social network is what they do. Like you could argue that Flagstaff, if there wasn't collegiate running, Flagstaff would just be overrun with runners between the ages of 18 all the way up to through to full-throated pro athletes.
Yeah, I wonder if curmudgeonly Flagstaff lifers are getting tired of all these teenagers showing up and dirtying up their trails and whatnot in their short shorts and everything. You're right; it's the equivalent of a tech house, right? And this is the place you go. Flagstaff's not Silicon Valley; it's Carbon Fiber Valley, or it's
folks, Lincoln Shrike here from the new podcast studio.
And that's coming up next after this message. All right. Yeah. It needs a better nickname than just Flag. I mean, I could be here for something sharper than Carbon fiber valley, but something like that. It's not
No,
really
I
a
think it's
valley if it's in the mountains, but something like that.
yeah. No, no. So they called. There was a desire in California to then name everything Silicon whatever whenever tech companies came to town. So when Venice Beach had Snapchat and a bunch of other tech companies moved in, they called it Silicon Beach. So it was just everything, like they were not original at all with it. Everything was just Silicon this, Silicon
Silicon. Yeah.
that. And what's the gosh, when I was at BYU driving from Salt Lake to Provo, there was a bunch of tech companies there and they had a name for it. Isaac Wood told me this. It wasn't Silicon Slopes. It was something like that. It was something where it was it was something with a mountain and then Silicon I think was in the title too. So I just think it's interesting because again, you would have people still go to pro clubs, but I don't think people like if you got 15th or something at NXN, you wouldn't just give up running. I mean, some of them would if there was no college system, but a
No.
lot of them would keep going, but they wouldn't get signed by a big group. So they would have to do it mostly on their own. And I think a lot of them would do something like this, where they would try to find a bunch of other people in the same position and then try to run themselves into a contract. The other part of it, I guess a lot of them would still want to go to college. So maybe they would want to be near a college, but they would all just enroll in NAU and run on the club system.
Mm-hmm.
It
Mm-hmm.
kind of reminds me of, have you heard stories about those runs in Kenya where they do like these massive fartlek runs and like pro people are in
Yeah.
it and you go until you can't last and you're just trying to impress people? That would be kind of cool. Just a whole bunch of people
Yeah.
storming down the road in Flagstaff trying to chase after Ches. Be cool.
Yeah, will there be lingering effects when the pandemic is over? I mean, will people want to stay? Their Stanford athletes are so enjoying not having
Well,
to
right.
give plasma to pay for their housing every month that they end up wanting to stay. We end up having Stanford South. That's
Another nickname.
We compete for Stanford, but we take private jets to and from Palo Alto, to compete. That's we start to get to a point where there's some distinct advantage for these higher schools if they would do that. I don't think we're going to see that, but you're going to have a lot of new athletes finding altitude for the first time and how their body responds to it. We could see some big gains from some athletes that are finally having the chance to get out there and run at 7,000 feet.
Yeah. I'm just trying to think of another place that would turn into a hot spot. I guess Boulder as well.
Boulder
too.
Yeah.
But
Big Bear.
I think altitude would be the initial draw, and then the draw would be, oh, everybody else is there, I gotta go, and then it turns into a hype house, and then you're all good.
Yeah. No, this is the running equivalent of like the TikTok houses, I think, right now. You got the people living together. You got to run a certain amount of miles each week to keep your spot in the house. Just like in the TikTok houses, you got to create enough content. Yeah. It's a big deal. So I'm excited where the future of running is going, where all college athletes are going to be taking online classes and just flying in and out for meets and going back to their cottage in Flagstaff.
Yeah. No, we are so used to the American system. It's weird to think that no other country really does it this way at all, let alone, high school, but especially college, with how they align sports in with their academics. It seems like a faraway concept for us, but when there's been an increasing amount of budget cuts, you could see a world where that would be the case, at least for the non-basketball, non-football sports. Sorry, I made it serious. You were just talking about a hype house, and now we went back to budget cuts. My
TikTok house.
apologies.
You
Yeah.
said Hype House. I was thinking of other nicknames while you were saying that, like Flagstaff U, Altitude
No,
U,
hype house is the name of it. Is it the literal
Hype
name of
House.
it? It's
Okay.
a bunch of TikTok people in LA.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah.
What people listen to this podcast for is to listen to guys in their 30s talk about TikTok.
I just like the term
But
hype house. I just think it's funny.
it
Like to
is.
me, it's just nothing makes me feel more out of touch than the term hype house, and I
Have
like
you ever
saying
been to
it.
a Hype
So,
House?
have I ever been? When have I not been to a hype house? I'm in one right now. My son's in it. My son is younger than all these TikTokers, right? So theoretically, he's going to
Yeah.
become more hip than them. They're going to be.
Isn't that cool to
They're
think of? Like those people are going to be out of style when when our kids are like doing the cool stuff, when they're like,
and then we'll
their
know
best
about
friends
it. We
are
won't be.
AI.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah. Well,
It'll be
they'll call
cool.
them lame, right? So,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. So I could read this page to you, this Wikipedia page about the hype house, but um, it's described as a collaborative house or a content house. Content house is a great term. Collaborative houses are a phenomenon in the social media world, allowing influencers and content creators to make videos together easily. The hype house is comparable to the Vlog Squad and Team 10, similar collectives of YouTubers.
Oh, dude.
So there you
Yeah.
go. Don't need to know any more than that.
I
But I
can't
did read.
make fun of.
I did read an actual article about the kids going to Silicon Valley and basically saying, "I'm not going to go to college. I'm going to go right out of high school to Silicon Valley and try to make a career for myself there." And they would live with a bunch of other people who were trying to pursue the same thing. It wasn't a content house, but it was
Yeah.
people chasing their dreams.
I mean, I feel like I live in a content house doing this podcast. My wife's kind of an influencer, if I'm being honest. So it's I'm we're gonna call this the Central Texas Hype House over here on Gilmore Street in Taylor, because there's I mean, sure, we shut down at about 8 p.m. and I'm sure that's different
Mhm.
than most hype houses, but it's about as close as you get here in Taylor.
Well, looking in your shed there's a lot of content behind you. I mean, maybe not the same type of content that they're doing on
Right.
TikTok, but there's a lot of stuff created behind you. If people are watching FloTrack.org/FloTrack podcast, you can see all the artwork that Lincoln's wife has been busy doing while Lincoln just yaps into a
Right now,
microphone and
so
writes a couple articles. So
mm-hmm. Yep. So we're doing good. I think when we talk about Hype House, that's the sign that we
time to go.
We need to call it a day.
FloTrackPodcast@gmail.com is the email address. Thanks to everybody for listening and downloading. Write us an email, please. Thanks to Alon for producing. For myself, Kevin Sully, and my co-host, Lincoln Shrike, from his content shed in Taylor, Texas. We'll talk to you guys tomorrow.
Hype Shed.